Welcome to Dog's Red Wine. We're in Perrysburg, Ohio. Today's January 5th, right?
Yeah, 2025.
The new year has started. A little weird. My name is John Guinivere. This is Jason. Jason, your last name?
Keeton. Jason
Right.
Keeton.
No, I often I've been wanting to ask you. Are you related to another Keaton?
The Michael Keatons and the Diane Keatons?
No, I was thinking of. There was an actor who was like 100 years ago.
Oh, Buster Keaton.
Buster, yeah. Are you related to Buster?
No relation to
relation.
Buster.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's what I wanted to ask.
Yeah.
He was like
Silent,
movies.
yeah. Big in silent movies.
You had to be a real actor.
Right.
Because you couldn't talk or hear or anything.
Right.
So
A lot of
expressions.
dancing. I think I've seen some of his work, right? So
this is a new show we decided to start. This is our first episode. And it's really going to be a show about nothing in particular. I think
it's a show about nothing.
One of the things we thought we'd start off with is some red wine and do a wine tasting. So Jason doesn't know which wine I bought. So I bought a bottle. I took the cork out about 20 minutes ago and put it in a paper bag. So he knows no idea what this wine is. And so I'm going to give him a little bit and give a little bit to myself.
Yeah, I do know one. I do know one thing that you said this is your favorite wine.
Yeah, that's. Fortunately, you don't know what my favorite wine is.
Right.
So there's no that, and you know it's red because I poured some. So you know it's red, and you know it's one of my favorite wines.
All right. Well,
so we'll just. Those are the only hints you get.
Right.
Yeah.
So I'm not a master sommelier.
Neither am I.
However, I did take James Suckling's course on Masterclass.
Oh, where was that?
It's called Masterclass. It's an app.
Oh, okay.
And it has great A-list, like Ron Howard teaches directing.
Gotcha.
Like
little classes on
So
this is a good bottle. I had a friend buy a bottle. Well, he just went in and bought a bottle, and we opened it and we poured it, and he took a sip and goes, this isn't really that good. And I'm like, what do you mean it's not that good? And it was a bad bottle of wine. It was, and that's pretty rare.
Right.
To be honest with you.
Yeah.
I mean, I've had some lousy wines, but it's not because they spoiled.
Right.
But you pretty much, if you're drinking a wine, you drink all the time, it doesn't taste right, it's probably the bottle.
Right.
So take a sip of it, or smell it, or what was your class first?
Yeah, you do.
Smell the bouquet, and you look at the legs.
Yeah, look at the leg, give it a little swirl, and the certain technique. So I'll do the whole thing, so...
What do you think? All this quietness. I'm wondering what's going through your head.
No, I'm analyzing it. It's very smooth and balanced. You can see it's not really, it's not real thick. Like to me.
Are you ready for questions, or do you want to take a few more sips? I grew up in a wine family.
Oh, nice.
Wino family.
Okay.
And then when I went to culinary school, they actually had wine tasting as part of
the culinary school.
Yeah, it was like mandatory.
Right.
And I wasn't 21 yet, but I was down in the basement in California Culinary Academy. Sipping wine with the guy who taught the class was a guy named Norm Roby, and Norm wrote for the Wine Spectator. He was just a great guy. He wasn't a wine snob.
Right.
He was like, it was good as good.
Right.
It doesn't matter if it's expensive or if it's cheap.
Yeah.
And, I think there's a lot of snobbery in wine. Well, I don't think there is a lot of snobbery. I'm more about what's great value for the price.
Right.
Now this wine, if it's my favorite, you probably realize it's probably a little more on the pricey side, so I am giving that away. But what do you think of it?
I really love it. And as far as like being wine snobs. There's Master Sommelier Emily Wines, and she was one of only 15 Master Sommeliers to ever pass the Master Sommelier thing on her first try.
Okay.
One of 15 ever in the world to pass it on her first try, and she is super down to earth and all about. What's your palate like? It
Right.
doesn't matter what it costs.
Well,
stuff
and
like
some
that.
people just can't taste the real subtleties.
Right.
Where it's funny, the word sommelier is funny to me because in Ohio, everybody says sommelier. How do you pronounce it?
Sommelier.
Sommelier. Okay, so it's French, right?
Yeah.
And the two L's is so it's sommelier.
Okay.
In French, right? So
Okay.
everybody around here corrects me, and I'm like, I think I'm right, but
So what is it
really
supposed to be?
usage. No,
What is it
it's
supposed to be?
usage. You know,
Oh, okay.
the rules with language are it's colloquial, right? So around here they mispronounce it, I guess.
Yeah.
But that's how you pronounce it around here. Like there's a French market or French name market around here called is it you've been there
Monet's.
Monet's, right?
Yeah.
Well, or around here they call it Monet's.
Yeah. There's. I'm from South Dakota, and the capital of South Dakota, it's spelled Pierre. Not in South Dakota. It's Pierre, South Dakota.
Pierre. Yeah.
It's Pierre, South Dakota, and yeah. So those regions.
Well, they
are
have
fun.
Lima here, right? And my dad did a lot of business in Peru, so I was thinking of Lima, Peru, but they don't call it Lima, they call it Lima.
Lima.
Right? Same
right.
spelling.
Right.
And so I asked someone, they used to grow a lot of lima beans there. And I'm like, really? And you go, yeah. And I'm like, okay, now I know how to pronounce it because now I associate it with lima beans, not them mispronouncing it in Lima.
I love it. So let's start with some questions.
Okay, I'm going to give you some questions. So, okay. How old do you think the wine is?
I know each season, depending on the dryness of the season, and like generally a harsher harvest season or a growing season produces a really more robust wine. And
That's definitely the way the French think.
okay.
Yeah, the French are like, let's abuse our grapes
Yeah,
and we'll get
yeah.
a better bottle.
Yeah. Okay. So at on my palate at first, I almost thought it was an Italian Chianti, but that wasn't the question. And I don't think it's an Italian Chianti anymore. But I'm saying this is probably
aged.
around a 2021, 2022.
It's a 2019.
Okay. Okay.
So technically it's 6 years old.
yeah. Yeah. That's
Which for
nice.
this wine, I think
Okay, now I know.
6
Now I know.
to maybe next 5 years would
Okay.
be. Although it's one
Okay.
of those wines that ages pretty well
Yeah.
overall. You know, some wines don't.
Right. Huh.
But this wine probably gets more expensive with age. Too.
Yeah.
It's a good collecting wine.
Yeah. This is okay. So 2019, I remember I was in doing some. I traveled the U.S. in an RV for 2 years. And I was in Oregon and California, and I know those 2017 and 2018, those were really good wine growing years if it was California wine, which I'm wondering if it is.
I found anything north of California a little bit more on the sweeter side. It seems like the colder weather gives you a sweeter wine. Around here in Ohio, there are a lot of small wineries, and they're all
really sweet.
Yeah, they tend to be sweeter wines.
Yeah, and
Now, I don't know if that is the winemaker's choice or if the sugar content is really high with grapes around here?
for around here?
Yeah,
I don't-
or what they
yeah.
grow, the variety that grows here, maybe.
Yeah, I'm not sure. But yeah, you can definitely tell a California wine from a Michigan wine.
Yeah,
you know,
oh, yeah.
for sure. So
Hopefully. If not, you stick to the $8 wine. 'Cause it doesn't really matter.
Yeah, exactly. So okay, let's the next.
So
question.
we got the year. So it's a 6-year-old wine. Do you know the variety?
I was trying to think. So, I think because of its fluidness, I'm going to go with a Pinot Noir. But
It's a cab.
it is a cab.
It is a cab.
So
And I don't normally buy cabs
okay.
because I can't afford the ones I like. So that gives you an idea. It is a
Yeah.
higher end wine. But it
Okay.
is a cab.
Okay.
And cabs are just, the inexpensive ones to me just
Right.
never. I mean, a Zin or, certainly a Merlot, those wines tend to be less expensive.
Right. You can see the legs on it. It's got sticky legs. That's nice. Okay.
So what state is it from? So it's not European.
Yeah. I was thinking it was a California wine, but I think I'm still going to go with California. I think
It is California.
Yeah. I can taste the difference in the Walla Walla wines from Washington and those Oregon wines. They have a little different flavor than this. This is a really nice. I mean, I'm not a wine snob, so I'm not into the best French wines.
Yeah.
But to me, a good California wine is the best wine
Sure.
for my palate. I love a good California wine. They do James Suckling again every year in the U.S. in Chicago, Miami, New York. He'll do a testing. Well, he's going to have over 100 vineyards, and generally they represent themselves like they send their family from the farms from all over the world to these things. And I've got to taste some of his 100-point wines. You get the little eighth of an ounce shot of it or whatever.
But it last, right?
So I have had some really good wines, but California for me is my favorite.
Give me a price. This is a retail price, in the store, not a restaurant. Restaurant, you're probably double to triple on most wines. But that's double, triple of the buying price, not the.
I'm wondering if I've had this wine before. Don't tell me. Let's not find out till the end of our. But if I was going to guess, I think this is $50 bottle wine, and I think I've had it. I think this is The Prisoner.
It's not, and it's more like a $92 bottle of wine.
Oh, okay.
But it's probably 92 instead of 60 because it's so popular.
Okay.
It's one of those wines that a lot of people really like.
And I guess The Prisoner probably wouldn't have been a 2019 either. I think
I'm not familiar with The Prisoner.
The Prisoner is really good, and it's around that $50 bottle. And they do a really nice Cabernet. It tastes very similar. So
it definitely gets better as we see.
Yeah. But this is delicious. So yeah, I don't think I would probably, now that you say that, I don't think I would guess a 2019 would be a $50 bottle of wine.
Yeah.
So that makes more sense that it's into that 80 or above range if you go to a 2019. But.
And normally I buy the $12 Zinfandel. I like to try the cheap wines and find that diamond in the rough. This wine is like, you can put that on there. This wine is more like I don't care.
Yeah, this is a really nice
And
wine.
actually, even at 92, it's not the most expensive wine out there by any
Of course,
means.
of course.
But I think it's one of the best for
I'm
the
excited.
price. And if you gave this wine to someone who's a wine person, they'd be like, "Ooh, that was nice of you. Thank you."
Yeah,
You know.
very nice. Well, you brought some cheese here.
Yeah, I was hoping like some like gooey triple creme brie. This might be a triple creme, but it's fairly young.
Okay.
So it's the older the brie, the more the enzymes make it more liquidy.
Right, right,
It's really firm when they first make it.
right.
So I'm sure the flavor's decent, but I'd rather, if I'm gonna eat some cheese, I'd rather have some amazing triple creme brie. But you know,
Is this an intentional pairing with this brie?
well,
and this one?
no, not necessarily. I mean, out of all the cheeses they had,
Yeah.
it was one they like.
Yeah,
I do like brie.
yeah.
Like I said, I like a more older, healthy. Now, if you left this brie on the counter for a week at room temperature,
Yeah.
a lot of people would not leave cheese on the counter.
Right.
I'd still have it covered.
Yeah.
But or maybe in a paper or the whole wheel.
Yeah.
I'm thinking about these European cheeses, and not very many American cheeses. I think Tillamook
Okay.
are pasteurized. Tillamook has a cold pasture, so their enzymes are still alive.
Right. Right.
The good enzymes after
Right.
like 90 days, all the bad stuff's killed off by all the good stuff.
Okay.
Right?
Okay.
And in the United States, they tend to pasteurize these cheeses, so they're not alive anymore.
Okay.
And European cheeses tend to be more alive still when they get here.
Oh,
They're not
nice.
pasteurized. So they'll still age
Okay.
over time.
Okay.
So if you left this on the counter for a week,
Right.
it will get gone because it's warmer,
Right.
and it'll start getting more
Fermenting.
flavor. Yeah,
Right,
exactly.
right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Which is a good thing. That's
Yeah.
what we want in cheese. Otherwise it's just cream or
Right.
half and half or milk. Whatever you start off with, it's still there.
Nice. Is that going to change the profile of my wine?
It might.
So-
Once you introduce another
Flavor on the palate,
Yeah,
and then it
sure.
changes it.
Yeah, well,
Nice.
why don't you find out? We
Yeah.
have a knife So one of the interesting things about Jason is he started off with was it your first career airline pilot?
Yeah. So that's what I went to school for. I went to the University of North Dakota, which is a very reputable flight school. At the time, the only one that had a better reputation.
So
was,
you knew at what age did you decide you were going to be a pilot?
I knew early on. My uncle was a fighter pilot in the Navy, and I was planning to follow in his footsteps. And he
In military, you mean?
yeah, in the Air Force or Navy, and I even had a congressional nomination to the Air Force Academy, and I had two relatives at the time that were in the military, one in the Navy, one in the Army, and they said, I don't know. I mean, they didn't recommend I go into it. So
Why not?
My uncle in the Navy, he had just had their first son, and then he got shipped out for a 1 year unaccompanied tour on the aircraft carrier, and came back, and he was there for, home enough to make another baby. And right before that baby was born, they wanted him to go on a 2 year unaccompanied tour, and
So he was suggesting the time away was too much.
yeah. So
So when you went to college to flight school, had you already flown?
I'd only flown a small Cessna a couple times. Went up with some guys. Didn't have a private pilot.
Oh, so it
license.
wasn't an instructor or anything like that.
It wasn't. Yeah, I was just with an instructor.
Do a lot
with
of people just go right into pilots? I mean, I would want to know I wanted to be a pilot because I'm a terrible passenger
right
in a plane. I mean, I am, not totally white knuckled anymore, but when I was younger, I hated to fly.
Yeah, I mean, you'll know pretty early on. I mean, I started out in the summer. I started the summer after my freshman year, and summertime flying for those little airplanes is actually the worst time to learn because it gets bumpy. You know, the air,
Sure,
the
yeah.
thermals and everything,
Right.
and it really bumps around the small airplanes. So a lot of people they'll know right away if they're going to be like, you know, seasick, airsick.
Sure.
You know.
Well, you've probably flown
right.
before you. I would think
Yeah,
most people
yeah.
have flown at least in
Yeah,
a plane
yeah.
before they went to flight school.
But it's different in the small ones. I mean, because there's
So
no
is
AC.
flight? Well, how is flight school 4 years?
It can be shorter. Mine was paired with a 4-year Bachelor of Science degree
Okay.
and meteorology. So
And did the school supply planes?
yeah, they had
Oh, really?
they had
Okay.
over 120 airplanes.
So your education is not just flying, but aerodynamics, I assume, and
Yeah, a lot of
thermals
weather. Yeah,
and all that kind
yeah.
of stuff.
I have
Okay.
a meteorology minor, so you know weather patterns and.
So you
predicting
went
weather.
to flight school, you graduated, then you test into
So then you have to go find a job. So I went down to Brownsville, Texas, right on the Mexican
Oh sure,
border.
I've been there of
yeah.
all places. Yeah.
So
Right by Spring Break, South Padre.
right, exactly. So went down there, and they had a flight school that was really busy, and we had students from all over the world. Really, we had students from Asiana Airlines from Korea. We had Aeromexico cadets.
Do the other countries prefer United States for training, or is that just the way it goes?
They do because of so few of airspace restrictions. It's actually United States, especially Texas. It's a huge area where you don't really have to worry about airspace. You don't have to worry about other countries shooting you down. You don't have to worry. You know, I mean, it's a really good training program,
Gotcha.
place to train. So we were really busy. I got a lot of flight time, and then I did that for about 2 years, and then went to the commuter airlines and flew the turboprops. If you remember, like
Yeah,
when
sure.
before they had all the small little jets,
Yeah.
and I flew the turboprops and then the small jets for about 8 years before I got hired on with AirTran Airways, which is a low-cost carrier that got bought by Southwest maybe
Okay.
about 6 years ago, and I worked there for 1 year, hated it, and mostly because of the management and this idealism of this low cost. Didn't really matter to them about anything other than being the
Safety?
cheapest. Yeah, barely safety. I mean, that was
Isn't
maybe
that sort of mandatory? Isn't safety?
you
like
know,
they don't have a choice?
they'll say something different, but they, not to put myself in a litigation, you know, on our
Right.
first episode,
Yeah.
but there was stuff that I witnessed that it was
Shady.
yeah, it was just something that you wouldn't want. They used to be ValueJet, so I
Okay.
mean, ValueJet got into trouble and ended up crashing into the Everglades because of
those,
some
the
oxygen
right,
containers,
right. Well, that wasn't really their fault.
But the way that they ran their like ramp operations and stuff like that, there was a time where they loaded a big brake drum assembly for an airplane on there, and they didn't secure it. And so I was a co-pilot at the time. I told the captain, I said,
Rolling
this is
around
on there.
there.
You know, I mean, if that rolled on takeoff, I mean, it could have
Yeah.
really, could have caused a crash or
Yeah.
whatever. You know, so I mean, I think, like I said, they tried to do everything so low cost that I think they rushed like their training and stuff.
Gotcha,
So
okay.
it was legal, but it was probably just the ramp might have been there 1 week.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, it was just
Well, it's a weird business. No one really makes money in
Right.
the airline business.
Right, right.
The joke how does a billionaire become a millionaire? He buys an airline.
Yeah. There was they had a really nice decade there recently. Even Warren Buffett got back into airline stock, but I think he might have even been the one that had that joke because he had lost a lot of money in airline stock and swore he would never buy airline stock again.
Right.
But that 1 year of experience there gave me the opportunity to get hired at Northwest Airlines, which is,
Reputable.
Yeah, exactly. And that's
So-
legacy carrier.
Did you ever have an experience where you were like where you were scared? I mean, those of us in the back were always scared, right? From takeoff to landing.
Right.
And we envision you guys up there screaming, we're gonna die, But I know that's not gonna happen. But did you ever have like a close call or?
There was a couple of them that made me pucker. I mean, there was one time when I was flying the turboprops. You can't really get above the weather. You only can get you can get to the low 20,000s, but
Because of how high they can climb.
their service ceiling, they can only go to, depending on the weight of the aircraft, maybe about 25,000. But in thunderstorms, I mean, they'll be at 50,000 feet in the summer. So I remember it was night. We were flying out west, and I was a brand new captain, and there was weather, and so we have good weather radar and airplanes, and picking our way through this line of weather, and it was a rough ride. And we got to what we thought was the other side of the weather, and there was just like a solid red radar echo line.
Oh, no.
and the only choice that we had is we had to turn around and fly back through that weather that we just flew through.
And you did.
And we did. And I, even though that we went back to, at the time we took off and landed in Minneapolis, I'm pretty sure all those passengers were happy just to be on the ground. They were just like, okay.
The ones that clap when you land. Yeah.
They're like, we don't need to get to our destination that bad, because that was one. And then I had some wind shear one time where we were coming in for landing, and we were probably only 50 feet above the runway, where you start your what they call the flare, where you kind of transition from flying to landing. And some wind shear hit us, and the runway all of a sudden was over there. It was such a side gust. That fast, and it was so then we
back up.
Yeah, we just went back up and came back.
Now,
down.
if wind shear happens, does it mean that there's something going on there and it's going to happen again?
It could.
Or is it more likely
now they have no. It's usually with a frontal system generally.
Okay, so it's still there.
It could still be there. Now most of the airplanes and airports have wind shear detection systems.
Yeah, I remember there were some big accidents.
Yeah, right.
They didn't really know what it was for a long time.
Right. And
once they figured it out, they're like, okay, we can warn for this.
Right. So they have really good. It works off of the Doppler principle of actually seeing air shifts and stuff like that. It's pretty accurate. But yeah, now most of the training is if you wait it out. You wait on the ground. You try not to put yourself in that situation.
Right. So is that a problem with takeoff? Has any
it could be
planes can get pushed back down?
Right.
Does that happen?
Generally, because of the conditions and stuff, that's why you don't take off in a thunderstorm. You know what I mean? So they'll wait it out, and they'll again have your wind shear detection system in the airplane and the airport. So generally, you don't see about it or hear about it. But.
What worries you? Like when you get in a plane. You check everything's hunky-dory, right?
Yeah.
Do you get like a weather report where you're going, or?
Yeah, you get, I don't know if you've seen, like when the pilot, it's a stack of paperwork that's generally like 30 pages, includes not just the weather at the destination, but all the weather. And generally, you've gone through a briefing with the dispatch. And if you have any questions, you can call up the dispatcher, and they're in. They call it operational control center, wherever the airline hub is, and they have all the screens. They're specialized in that region, so they know the weather. They've probably been doing it for 20 years. They're really familiar. They'll put notes in there, and if it's something like there is actual weather that you need to get updates on before you take off, you're in
Well,
constant
and I'm
communication with
assuming if you're flying for 6 hours, all sorts of things change from
Sure.
the time you take off to the time you land.
them. Right. right.
Weather can change here in 20 minutes.
Right.
So I'm sure.
Right.
So do they warn you as you're coming in? Or do you see it on the plane?
Usually you can only have a good weather picture about 80 miles out in front of you. So the big picture always comes from dispatch or iPads now. I mean,
Do you say iPads?
yeah, they use electronic flight bags. Yeah,
Really?
everything's on iPad, and you can overlay real-time weather, and you can kind of get the big picture. So yeah.
And it's becoming more and more automated, right?
Yeah, the airplane, I fly the Airbus, and that can land itself fully.
So at what point do they stop using pilots?
Airbus themselves is working with Cathay Pacific, and they've been testing it for probably 3 or 4 years now of single pilot crews, with the other one just being
So
totally
in essence,
automated.
all hell breaks loose. You got to have someone on the plane who can fly it.
Right. And
Otherwise, we're going to automate everything.
right. So
That sort of makes sense, because if it's being automated anyway, it's more psychological.
and
isn't
I
it?
think the passengers want a
Right,
pilot
I
up
mean,
there,
psychologically,
right.
What do you mean there's no pilot?
Yeah,
right?
yeah. So yeah, I mean, drone pilots are safely on the ground in their
Right,
with their
right,
joystick,
yeah.
but I think the flying public wants something different. But yeah, so started out my career in aviation, and video was always my hobby, and I started videoing school events for my kids like 20 years ago, and had an airline pilot salary, so I was able to buy a nice equipment, and sometimes nicer than.
So you say airline salary. So when you started, the first job,
yeah,
it
was horrible.
What you're making?
Oh, it was horrible. So it was that was back in the mid '90s, where I think I made about $30,000 my first year as an airline pilot.
So that's 60 now.
Maybe 50.
Maybe 50?
Maybe 50 in today's dollars. But
So where were you out of?
at that
Because
time
that
I
has
was-
to be a big
Yeah.
difference, right? Because
Yeah.
you can't be out of the Bay Area,
Right.
Because you couldn't afford
and that
a
was
hole in the wall. For
and that
50
was
grand.
and that was part of the problem too, because certain airlines were based out of New York or Cabo San Lucas. I mean,
Well, you'd be based out of Cabo.
yeah, I mean, but they it would be so expensive that they would put 8 flight crews to they'd all go in because they wouldn't all be there at the same time.
Oh, right.
So they'd all go in
co-rent
and
a room or an apartment or something.
right.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, they used to call them crash pads, or
So,
still call them crash pads.
Now you're semi-retired from Northwest, right? And that changed because of health, right?
Right.
So how long do you have to be with an airline till you're set? Because I had a childhood friend. I think he's still flying for free. His dad passed away, I think, 20 years ago.
Okay, yeah. My kids still fly for free, or after I think they're like 24 or out of college. Same kind of when they're off their medical
But
benefits.
that's a
or
beautiful
whatever.
fringe benefit.
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah.
every weekend I'd be flying somewhere.
Right.
Where you get away with it.
I remember my friends, would be, or my daughter's friends would be hanging out with them, and they'd say, "Why are you even here right now? You
Why you want?
Yeah,
right
why
now.
are you hanging out in Bowling Green, Ohio,
Yeah.
with us when you could be, in Miami Beach right now?"
Right,
So,
right.
but yeah. So I retired for health reasons, right? So I was flying. This was 2016. I had cancer, going through a pretty rough time in my life. I think going through a divorce, and I was taxing on my health. I think my mental health especially, and ended up getting cancer that year. And the FAA has a medical division also. You have to have not only a pilot license but also a medical certificate. And I lost my medical that.
But that is sort of absurd because if you have cancer, you don't die mid-flight from cancer.
Right.
It's not like a heart attack or
right or
a stroke.
Right. Exactly. Or
an embolism or something like that.
Right. Yeah. So it's pretty strict, and it's pretty archaic in almost everybody's eyes, including mine. But it's really hard once you lose your medical to get it back, especially if my cancer was just completely gone. It might be easier, like after a 2-year period or something, to get it. But I still have three mets, in my liver that are stable. They've been stable for 8 years. Never had to do chemotherapy.
So they're just hanging out.
They're just hanging out.
Yeah.
So the FAA has a little bit of I guess they have a big problem with it. They don't want me to fly.
It seems, well, it is absurd. It doesn't
Right.
seem absurd.
Right.
It's absurd, and you'd think, because they lost a lot of pilots to the vax, right?
Right. Yeah.
So you think they'd tweak these rules a little bit to let guys like you come back?
Right.
There's got to be a lot more guys like you.
Yeah. Delta hired a doctor full time, and his only job is to help their pilots, get back in. A lot of it is paperwork. I was just at a meeting they had a seminar with the FAA and the doctors and stuff like that. And for one, the FAA admitted they're severely understaffed and behind by 6 months on the paperwork. And the amount of paperwork they looked through, they were...
But they need to send some more money to Ukraine. Safety and our pilots is not important right now. Right. We need to send more money to Ukraine.
Yeah, that's a whole nother political argument of how much money our government wastes.
I mean, that's so absurd that one of the most important things, I'm sorry, but flying planes and it being safe is...
Right.
Well, I know it's important because everybody freaks out when one crashes, right? So you don't have to take my word for it.
Right.
Everybody, is scared, what-less about flying. And if the FAA is like, we're too busy.
Right.
That's not good.
Right. And I think that's why they deny things so easily. Because it's just easier to
make
deny
a decision.
Right. And the staffing. So, but yeah, I had...
plane crash. He had cancer.
Yeah,
I had cancer.
Yeah, I don't. Not very likely, right? So
I don't think that's ever happened.
Right.
I don't recall that.
Exactly. So
if you had cancer, it would have crashed.
Yeah, but it did give me an amazing opportunity because at the time that I lost my pilot job, I had this passion that it would always been a hobby of videoing, and so. Rather than just pout and sit on the sofa, I decided, well, I'm going to go all in on video. And I also did another thing. The FAA told me I was going to be off, no matter if I got completely healthy, I was going to be off for a minimum of 2 years because they wanted to monitor, make sure it didn't come back or whatever. So during that 2 years, I was sponsored by Rockwood GeoPro. and
That's
did
quite
social
a
media.
switch
Right? It's an RV company.
from pilot to roadshow RV guy.
Yeah, but it was really cool. So I got to be a YouTube influencer. They gave me a $35,000 fully equipped, brand new #1. Actually, it was their prototype off the assembly line.
I did something similar, but I had I think it was a 24-year-old executive diesel pusher.
I remember that's what you did Chef's Live in, right?
And that thing was in such bad shape. Everything that could go wrong went wrong with it. Plus, it leaked. So when it rained, it smelled like dog.
Oh, yeah.
Because someone had, no offense, dog, but someone had, like major dog in there, and that thing stunk so bad.
Right, right.
Everything that could go wrong went wrong with that thing.
Yeah, it was. It was opposite. It was brand new, and it was great. We worked directly with the manufacturer, and they just wanted us to stop in at the dealers when we would go around the country and kind of show them what it looked like and stuff. Maybe
we could do that again. We can just do like a road show and interview people.
Yeah. It was that also was actually life changing because I had no timeline for anything. There was no you need to be here. It was just, it took about 5 weeks before I realized that
there's no agenda.
There's no agenda.
Yeah.
To get out of the mindset.
You're like a hippie.
Yeah, absolutely. And we stayed and made friends with a lot of hippies, but it was incredibly freeing once you realize you don't have to, go with the alarm and get up and, go to the office. And
I've always said that's when you know you're successful, is when you can get up anytime you want.
Anytime you want, right? So I was, even at the time, I don't think I set an alarm for 2 years, and I would still wake up with sometimes even right before the sun. It seemed like the sun. I think it's when the birds started chirping in the morning or something like that. Kind of wake up, and I love that because go and make myself some camp stove coffee and kind of just sit out there. And I was an early riser. I can tell there wasn't usually very many people that were up and kind of watch the sun come up and the stillness of
drunk.
it. Yeah. But we were off grid for the first year, all but 12 days, I think it was, 8 or 12 days, and because it was solar powered. It was a travel trailer that was solar powered. So that entire first year we were completely off grid. So I didn't have a lot of campground fees and stuff like that, be able to do stuff.
When I went around in an RV, I was amazed at how expensive RV parks are.
I agree.
I'm like, what do you mean 20? And they're way more now, but they were like $25. And I'm like, for a concrete pad.
Right.
I could go down to Motel 6 for $25.
Right.
Someone had to change the sheets and everything else, right?
Yeah,
it's amazing how much they get for it. Now they're like $50, $75 a night.
Yeah, exactly. No, it's not. It's not cheap if you stay in like a KOA. I mean, it's as same price as probably a Holiday Inn, and
probably need a little more wine.
Sure. But that's another reason we had an entire month budget of $3,000 total. That included our gas, our food, our camp fees. So
I think my budget was $300 a month.
But
we were running on fumes.
Literally, trying to fill that thing with diesel.
Diesel then was 89 cents, 85 cents a gallon.
Yeah.
And that thing got 10 miles a gallon. So, and I didn't have GPS.
Right.
It was like early days. GPS would have saved me like half of my fuel budget because you take a wrong turn in an RV and it'll cost you $40.
Right, yeah,
You know, because it's 20 miles that way and 20 miles back.
right,
You know, you're screwed.
right. Well, tell me more about Chef Live.
Well, I realized that the internet was going to go towards video.
Yeah,
Before we went video.
This is like, we're talking dial-up. We're talking 25 years ago, right?
Yeah, 90. When did I buy my first computer? Like 95,
Yeah, yeah,
96 maybe.
right.
I bought a Hewlett Packard 486. It was running Windows 3.0, and dial-up at that time was 14,500 kilobits per second, which is so slow. I mean, a phone can't go that slow now.
Yeah, right, right.
You know that we're a millionth of a second maybe we're at 14. It's just
Right,
no comparison.
Right,
And there was no video.
right.
And the porn guys were doing video, but it was like little tiny boxes, and it was like 15 frames a second. 10,
Yeah.
And I heard. I never watched any of this, but they actually started the video business on the internet.
I can see
It was
that.
the porn guys because they had the money, and all these horny guys were willing to pay money for this terrible. Because there was no competition, and they didn't have anything else to use or watch, and I started watching not the porn, but watching the industry getting better and better, right?
Right.
So I figured one day this streaming video might take off, and it's going to allow anybody to be in on it.
Right.
And a lot of people are like, no one's going to watch videos on the internet, John. You're wasting your time, And I was like, well, okay, I'm still going to do this.
You were working as a chef at the time in Vegas?
I was mostly doing catering
Okay.
in Las Vegas.
Okay.
I would do like 4 or 5 corporate events a month.
Right.
And that paid the bills.
Right.
And everything else was like time. And I met this guy. This is a funny story. I'm sure Joe's still out there. So I met Joe at a party, and we started talking, and I was really irked that I couldn't figure out how to put videos on the internet.
Right.
Now, a little kid can put a video on the internet now, but in those days,
Right.
in '98, it was not easy
Right.
to put a video on the internet.
Right.
Practically impossible.
Right.
And so I met this guy named Joe, and Joe had been arrested by the CIA for hacking the Department of Defense at age 15. And so when he turned 16, they hired him.
Nice.
And he worked for them for quite some time. And he started, I think he was cooking meth. And he
It's
got
like Breaking
arrested. He got arrested, and the CIA said, "Sorry, you
Done.
Yeah, we can't be in with you
Right.
hacking." And
Right.
so they cut him loose. And so when I met him, he wanted to go into the porn business, and I wanted to go into the chef business. And I really said to him in '98, I go, I think it's saturated. I think the porn business isn't going to grow, because how many porns do you really need out there, And I was totally wrong. I mean, that wasn't even, by '98 was not even a drop
Right.
in the proverbial bucket of where the porn industry is now with the internet. But people still watch cooking videos.
Yeah.
And so I think it's sort of the same. People can't get enough of either.
Right. Right. My friend says, belly full, pecker hard. Right. So he gets both of them. So you started kitchen. You had a kitchen stadium before.
Well,
Food Network had kitchen stadium.
What I wanted to put together in Las Vegas, because I first started off as just a .com,
Yeah.
and then the .coms just, what was it, 2000?
Right.
Took a
Boom.
nosedive. So I didn't have any debt, and I had I was being chased by companies. One was AT&T. So AT&T spun off a company just to invest in startups like mine. And they approached me, which is a beautiful thing. I mean, nothing better than an investor coming to you, right?
Right, right.
And I'm like, oh, awesome, AT&T?
Yeah.
You know, and I was down in South Padre Island, right?
Yeah.
And the crash hit, and the phone just stopped. They all went away.
Yeah.
So I ended up back in Vegas, and so I had a .com with no debt, which is better than most of the .coms because they've been wiped out. And I was like, well, I got to add maybe a brick and mortar aspect to this if I'm going to get some investors. So I came with an idea to do a studio in Vegas where tourists could buy a seat, watch a chef make some recipes, and then videotape it in high def and put it on the internet.
Yeah. And what year was this?
2004.
Okay. Okay.
So things had changed quite a bit as far as streaming.
Right.
YouTube still hadn't come on board.
Right.
So it was still like put it here and a fee was involved.
Right.
So I was gonna sell my recipes.
Right.
And then YouTube came along and said free. I'm like, free? How's that gonna work? How is free gonna work? So even though I did a channel with YouTube was very loosey-goosey with how to make money. They didn't know.
Yeah, right.
You know?
It was the Wild West.
You know, and really everything has come back to the way TV went 100 years ago.
Right.
Commercials.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, pay or pay a fee and no commercials.
Right. Right.
But it's really advertising dollars.
Right.
And that's where we went through all of these, you know, how are we going to pull this off? How's this going to work? And it just went full circle and went back. And what's really interesting to me, I think, is in the early days of TV, like Lawrence Welk or, you know, Johnny Carson, they did commercials that were part of the show.
Right, right.
So Westinghouse would have their, you know, washer and dryer or their fridge, and you know, someone would come in and do a plug. We're now doing that on a lot of the YouTube channels.
Yeah, I see that.
Where they stop and they pause and they go, brought to you by.
Yeah,
you know?
exactly.
So I think it's sort of funny where the business has gone.
When you were on your Chef's Live tour, when you had your stadium, did you have the RV before the stadium?
Well, I did the RV. I hit the road in '99.
Okay. Okay.
And I bought Chef Live November '98. '99, you know, was the big millennium year, all that talk. So we got the RV. I sold everything I pretty much had, and got on that thing with like $200.
But you interviewed some like amazing.
Oh
like,
yeah, no one was
chefs.
doing it. So everybody was like, yeah, I, you know what? They probably would say yes now.
Yeah.
But no one knew what they were getting into.
Right. Right.
You know, no one. If you went to a chef now and said, "Can I put you on YouTube?" You go, "Yeah, sure."
Yeah.
You know, there's no explaining.
Right.
But in '99, I had to tell them, "Okay, I'm going to videotape you. I'm going to edit it. Then I'm going to upload it to the internet." And anybody with this software can watch it.
Right.
And people are like, really? That, you know, and some people are like, that's amazing. That, you know, that's so cool. It was a different time. Mm-hmm. I was definitely an early adopter on what the technology was. And there wasn't a huge audience either.
Sure. Well, because you don't have... It wasn't as easy. You had to subscribe to something.
Also broadband maybe was 4 or 5%.
Right.
Of the population of the United States.
Right.
You know, the rest of the world was like dial-up.
Right.
Pure and simple.
Yeah.
So it was an interesting time. It's amazing to see where it's now more people watch video on the internet than they do on TV now.
Right. And you were able to take Chef's Live public, like as a public traded
Well,
company?
You know what? In hindsight, everybody was taking their company public then. All the .coms were, and that's where you made the money.
Okay.
So you, by taking it public, even if it wasn't a profitable company, you could make a couple $100 million overnight.
Sure. Just
So I was more interested in making a couple $100 overnight. Yeah. So I went ahead and I started the process of going public.
Yeah.
And when I actually got my symbol,
Yeah.
it was on the over the counter. They call it OTC market.
Right.
It wasn't the right time.
Yeah.
And it wasn't with the right people, and it wasn't for the right reasons.
Right.
In hindsight, I absolutely shouldn't have done it. It was a huge distraction.
Right.
And going through the process of taking the company public, the SEC is, the term full annual exam is the only thing that comes to mind. They're terrible.
Yeah.
You know, they cross every T, and I got a phone call out of the blue from the SEC, right? You know, like, hello? This is, blah, blah, blah from the SEC. And I'm like, okay. In an article in this newspaper, you said this. And I'm like, yeah. Well, you can't say that. And I'm like, I didn't actually say that. I said this. They misquoted me. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. That was like 3 years before.
Right.
That's how, maybe with budgets now, they're not like that with the SEC. But they were then.
Yeah. Yeah. So, and you do mentoring now for business people, correct?
I love to give advice.
Yeah.
I probably started giving advice at 6 years old. Not that anybody's listening, but I was given it, and I've always been one of those people that people call and say, I want to do this, or what would you do? Or I actually like situations where people are in trouble.
You're sure. Turnarounds.
Yeah, or our PR.
Yeah.
I've had a few clients that had PR disasters.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, we can turn this around.
Yeah.
And I did, and sometimes you just have to do something that's so bold.
Yeah.
And ridiculous. I had a restaurant tour in Las Vegas, and he had a bunch of his restaurants, there was food poisoning. Well, one restaurant, maybe.
Right.
More than two. I think it was like 3 or 4.
Yeah.
I'm like, we're talking inside job here.
Yeah.
And it was a PR disaster.
Right.
And I said, okay, when you hang up the phone, I want you to call the FBI.
Yeah.
And ask them to investigate it.
Yeah.
I don't care if they do or not.
Right.
Then I want you to pick up the phone, and I want you to call the newspaper.
Yeah.
And I want you to say, I called the FBI to have them investigate it.
Right.
Because that takes it off of you.
Right. Right.
Obviously, it's something, if you're willing, it doesn't matter if the FBI even investigates it.
Right.
Doesn't matter if they
Public
find
perception.
anything. It is that this ain't me.
Right.
Somebody's doing this to me.
Right.
And it worked. And sometimes people are in a mental situation where they're hunkering down and they're like, they don't want anybody to talk to them. And that's not what you should do.
Right.
You need to go towards danger.
Right.
And people will pick up on that he must be innocent.
Yeah.
It must not be his fault.
Right.
Or he wouldn't react that way.
Right.
Because guilty people or dumb people, they act in a way where the public goes, see?
Right. Right.
And they just clobber you some more.
Yeah.
It becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. I do a lot of mentoring for SCORE, and SCORE was started like years ago by the Small Business Association, SBA with the government, and there's a couple million hours a year throughout the country that are mentored by mostly retired people.
Yeah.
I'm not really retired. I just with COVID I had more time
Right.
on my hands. I was like, well, if I can help somebody.
Right.
And it's so fulfilling.
Right.
It really is. You
Right.
know, and sometimes people just need half hour of your time.
Right. Right.
They just need like a hint that I need to go this way or I'm not looking at that way.
Right.
And sometimes people have a view that has nothing to do with reality.
Right. It's their reality.
Yeah, I had a customer who was like, well, if the bank gives me a loan, they'll do that, right? I'm like, no, the bank is not going to run your company.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly.
They're going to loan you money, and they're going to expect a payment every month. That's as far as it goes. They'll check you out.
Yeah.
They want you to pay the money back, but it ain't going to run anything.
Right. Right. Most of the time, you have to have a pretty good business plan nowadays to even get a loan through at least you have to show a business plan to get a good business loan.
You should anyway.
Of course.
You know,
of course.
a business plan, you know, if it's private equity, they want to see it.
Right.
If it's an SBA loan, they want to see it. But also, you really should put it on paper.
Right. Exactly.
Because I talk to a lot of people and they haven't done a business plan, and you're like,
It shows.
well, you haven't really, you know, you're in the dream stage.
Yeah.
You need to put it in paper, and
Right.
then once you put it on paper, then we can evaluate it
Right.
and go, well, if you got to sell something for 32 cents and it costs you 35 cents,
Right.
it's probably not going to work. And sometimes that'll come out in a business plan. You know, sometimes people, they're just dreaming.
Yeah.
Reality has to be part of business.
Right.
Because reality will be 3 times worse.
Yeah. And with SCORE, they kind of assign you with, or they ask you if you want to take but a lot of times they do restaurant stuff with you, right? Bars and restaurants.
Well, they changed the way they were handing out clients, shall we say.
Sure.
So 2 years ago, they'd all go to one guy in this area.
Mm-hmm.
And then he would send out an email and say, these people need help, and this is what they need help with. So if you saw something, like, oh, that's up my alley.
Right.
And then they changed everything. So instead of it being regional, it's more about expertise.
Sure.
So I've had clients from all over the dang place,
Yeah.
which is good and bad. Like one of my clients is in St. Louis, and she opened up a Cuban restaurant, and I'm now friends with her on Facebook. I can't go eat her food. I want to so bad because she's posting photos of, you know, Cuban sandwiches and different things that she's making. I'm like, I might have to do a road trip to. His bark call. Got him. Perfect. You gotta be quiet, Bart, if you want to hang with us.
But so now they assign it to you because you have your expertise.
I log in. I have a list, and I can accept them.
Right.
Or if I don't accept them, I can even say why.
Sure. Sure.
And they do throw the restaurant ones towards me.
Yeah.
And you can also go. This is a great resource for. It really doesn't matter if you want to start a company, you have one going. You know, 4th generation, doesn't matter.
Right.
There's probably someone out there who can help you.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you can actually go on to SCORE and ask that person to help you.
Sure.
So they all have their backgrounds and what their expertise is and education. And I occasionally get someone who's like, okay, I'm in Toledo. I want to do a food truck. And I have no food experience.
Yeah.
Which I had the other day. So they will ask, and SCORE will then ask me if I'll take them.
Sure. So with Dog's Red Wine, we have the nice option that we've combined video with your marketing expertise in your business expertise, and we can really work with anybody's budget.
Well, I think that is the biggest point is why do you need a video?
Yeah, yeah,
Right? So a lot of people, I think, I could sell you a video how a video could be advantageous to you, but there's also a lot of people. Bart, get away from the camera. Bart, come here. It can also be advantageous. You could be a corporation, and you need a training video.
right, right,
Well, there's a difference
Right.
between iPhone and say you
Right.
putting someone on a chair, well lit, good camera, good
Right.
sound, right?
right,
And people are that way about content.
right, right,
They take some of it seriously,
Yeah.
and some of it's a joke.
right, right,
So, do you need a trained video? Do you need to hire people?
right,
Do you need more business? Do you just want people to know you're out there?
right,
So everybody are like what we're doing. There are lots of people who just don't have the foggiest idea how to shoot a video.
right. And you can tell. I mean, there's fun video that people can post, but then when you want to highlight, let's say your food, your menu, and we go in there and we have the right lighting and the right misters and the right colors, and we can, it's notably different than iPhone, right? So people
That and listening to what they want.
right, right,
Because even if you have an idea what you would use a video for, you probably don't know how to shoot it.
right, yeah,
And I say that from having shot thousands of terrible videos.
I've learned and made so many mistakes, but they were learning mistakes. So,
Yeah.
and I got to, when I was right after that RV trip, I kind of ended up in Joshua Tree, California.
Oh yeah, no
And,
Joshua.
yeah, and worked
Spent
out
a
of
windy
LA.
night there.
There's a lot of windy nights, and there's a lot of nothing around there. But
Yeah.
there's
Joshua trees, that's about
Yeah,
it.
yeah.
And dirt.
Yeah, Pappy and Harriet's though still might have the best barbecue ribs I've ever had. They do them open fire, wood,
Yeah.
and they just grill them out there in the wind in the desert, and usually have live
That's a
music and
military
stuff.
area, isn't it?
29 Palms is real close to there, yeah, and that's a big Marine base, yeah. But I got to work in Los Angeles on a few different projects and work with some pretty big names there. I worked Coachella Soundstage, worked Gibson Soundstage. A lot of it had to do with music, and learned a lot.
Coachella is all about music. isn't
Yeah, yeah. But
it? Gibson's in there.
yeah, yeah, and the opportunities though were I learned so much just being around these people that went to school. I went to school for aviation. They went to school for directing and videography, and ran multi-million-dollar budgets per commercial.
I have two sides to the people in this business. I have a friend who probably has one of the top positions in media that
Right.
you could possibly have. He went to UCLA.
Yep.
So he went to school for that, pursued it, over 45 years has done incredibly well. But I also know guys that just bought a camera
Right.
and taught themselves. I'm more of the taught themselves. There just wasn't the availability, No
Right.
one was. You couldn't buy a camera.
Well, before the cameras were so expensive. I remember being at a small music venue in Burbank, California, and doing this small music video with my good equipment, but it's this guy came in and he had this $80,000 Red camera, and he was just and I got to talking to him about it. He's like, I don't know anything about anything. He's like, my boss just told me to come down here and shoot some content, you know. So, and then he just hands the hard drive over. And I've worked on projects like that, and it's that's one thing I didn't like about LA. I mean, I could have made a nice living out there, but I like to be creative. I like to be, you know, I love what we do now with Dogs Red Wine. We sit down with the customer, we listen to them, and start to finish, we produce something they want within their budget. And it's
also a little bit about dreaming.
Yeah.
You know, really, to make an impact now, you really have to do something that no one else is doing.
Right.
Because everybody can make a video now.
Right, exactly.
You know, so you're competing with the 8-year-old with an iPhone now, you know?
Right.
And sometimes they hit it out of the park.
Exactly, yeah.
And the lighting's good, the sound's good, you know. At least those factors are less of a play. I mean, if we were to shoot this 20 years ago,
would have been expensive. And
$500,000.
Yeah, right.
And we wouldn't be able to. Well, no, we could edit it.
If we were talking about film,
3 years ago we couldn't.
Right. 20 years ago is kind of when I got my start, and working with the software. And you had to have a big computer system. You had to have.
It was Avid. Avid was pretty much what everybody used in LA.
Yeah.
And it was like $500 an hour or something to use an Avid system.
Right, exactly. It was, the processing power was, I mean, incredible. I mean, stuff that home user, it was out of the range. And gaming helped that. Like
I had a new compact. This was 98. It had software. It was MGI. It had real-time editing. And I called my girlfriend's father because he did editing. I go, this is real-time editing. You know, he's like, impossible.
Yeah.
Really, and no one knows what that means. But I used to have to make a video.
Right.
I'd edit it. I'd compress it. That could take an hour for like 5 minutes.
Right.
And then you watch it and like, oh, I made a mistake.
Right.
And you have to redo
it. Yeah.
The whole thing. People don't realize what real-time editing difference.
One of the airlines I worked for, they hired me or assigned me a opportunity in their media department, and I made training videos for the pilots and stuff like that. And they bought all the equipment. They had the right equipment and stuff, but even back then, that was 2006. The compression time. I mean, they're like, why does it take so long? I'm like, it's like twice as long as, you know, the time that we even shot it. So you're talking, you want a 30-minute video, it's probably going to take 2 hours to compress and edit, and and they're like, what do we do? I'm like, we wait. There isn't much to do.
That is the video business thing.
Right.
Hurry up and wait.
Yeah.
Even a shoot is 3 hours of prep for 10 minutes of video.
Right.
It's, generally the way it goes.
Yeah.
It's better now because things are easier to use.
Yeah.
But, like the sound we have 20 years ago, you'd have to have a sound guy.
All right. 5 years ago, the difference in mic quality is really amazing. I mean,
the difference between pro and amateur is now the same.
Right.
In fact, some of the amateur stuff you can buy is way better than what the pros are using.
Yeah, the
quality. You can get a 4K camera. They're not using. The news does not use a 4K camera.
Right, and we have like mics that the Shure microphones. They're $380. XLRs. you can now buy that same microphone $150 cheaper with USB-C. You know, it's XLR is it's you know that's what most of the
Standard
professionals
format, yeah.
and now you're seeing better quality with consumer grade microphones. I mean, that's sure is an amazing quality.
These are cool because it's not only going to the camera and onto the tape, it's recording it
Right.
as a separate file, as yours is.
Right.
So the camera could mess up the sound.
Right.
You can still take it off these.
Right. Exactly.
And we can walk way away from the camera.
Right. Right.
We can walk 5 miles away from the camera.
Yeah.
It's
still
still
have a
recording here.
conversation. Yeah. It's cool. Yeah. The technology today really is amazing for the compactness and the portability. You know, I mean, you see the budgets of these different companies, and like I used to work down in Miami Beach in film, and there's big money down there, right? It was obviously, but some businesses could spend $100,000 on a 30-second commercial. And you saw when they brought the cranes in and the lights and the big cameras. But I could go to the business next door that was a single woman that moved here from Italy to start her dream of this pizza business with her son. And their budget was $500. And the consumer, especially over media, if you had a high, you can't tell the difference.
Yeah.
It's all in the skill and the eye, and you couldn't tell the difference.
Also have an imagination, which is I only have $500.
Right.
So what can I do for them for $500?
Right.
And still make some money for my jeans.
Right. Exactly.
You know, and pull it off.
Right.
And
Right.
I don't think budgets are necessarily what is going to make the difference anymore.
I agree. It's creativity.
Yeah.
You know, the vision. And if you don't have the vision and you don't have the skill, that's where the budget has to be bigger. Because
you're going to add spectacular to it. Yeah.
Right. So.
Bart. Okay, let's unveil this
Let's
wine.
see what we got.
You have no idea, do you?
Well, we decided it was 2019 from California, Cabernet Sauvignon. And let's see, your favorite wine. Let's see what it is.
I have maybe 3. Now, I almost never drink white wine, but I will drink Cake Bread Chardonnay.
Cake Bread Cellars, Cabernet Sauvignon, Napa Valley.
In my opinion, one of the best.
Love it. I would have, if I would have just saw the label, I would have thought it was going to be too sweet for me. But it's not sweet at all. It's a beautiful wine. So, and you picked this up at Kazmeyer's in Perrysburg, Ohio. So, nice selection there.
And actually, Kazmeyer's has 4 of my favorite wines.
Nice.
On the top shelf there.
Yeah. No, they do have a really nice wine selection there. So.
Well, they do, and the liquor store down the street, Rite Aid, closed.
Right. So now the only place to get them. Yeah. Oh, are they putting a liquor store in there?
No, it was a liquor store and wine.
Right, but
now the only liquor store is Kroger's.
Right.
And Maumee.
Yeah, or if you go across, Pockin and Maumee.
Yeah.
Nice. Beautiful.
Yeah.
Well, thank you.
Well, cheers to everybody. Thanks for joining.
Thanks for joining
Jason
us.
And I, and we're going to eat some pork roast.
Yeah, I'm excited for that.
It smells good,
it smells really good. Well, thanks,
It'll
John.
go well with this cab.
And hope everybody enjoyed learning a little bit more about us.
If you have too much money in your pocket and you want some good red wine, I highly recommend a little Cake Bread. We probably, next wine's your choice. So
all right.
You may go totally cheap. I mean, it's all right. I mean, if you can pull off that for $12.
No, I know I
would-
can't do it for
yeah,
$12, but I'll see
it's
what I
hard.
can do.
You know, that's the thing about really good wine.
I know a couple sommeliers around the area. I'll try and stump you. See what I
Cool.
can do next week.
Well, thanks for joining us, everybody. Good night.
Good night.
Hey, boys.